Welcome to section 20.5 of Metabolism. In this video, we will focus on memorizing the details of pyridoxine or vitamin B6. Let's begin. In this story, we will join a boisterous group of pirates as they attempt to invade a beautiful island found along their journey. These pirates and the inhabitants of this island will help us learn all about pyridoxine. The first thing that drew our pirates to this island is this cluster of pyramids, which sounds like pyridoxine, the focus of our video. Note that there are 6 pyramids in total, which should remind you that the more common name for pyridoxine is vitamin B6. Let's begin by learning about enzymatic reactions that use pyridoxine as a cofactor. First, let's meet our first pirate, who appears to be anticipating a fight once they arrive on the shore. He is transferring ammunition to the top of the ship. Transferring ammunition sounds like transamination, which should help you remember that B6 is a cofactor used for transamination. Recall that aspartate transaminase and alanine transaminase, or AST and ALT for short, are 2 such enzymes in the liver that utilize B6 in their transamination reactions. Decorating the sails of the ship are severed heads from former adversaries. These decapitated heads let everyone the ship encounters know that these pirates mean business. Decapitation sounds like decarboxylation, which is a chemical reaction that releases carbon dioxide from a molecule. The citric acid cycle has some great examples of decarboxylation reactions. The enzymes that turn pyruvate to acetyl-CoA, isocitrate to alpha-ketoglutarate, and alpha-ketoglutarate to succinyl-CoA all also release carbon dioxide. These decapitated heads should remind you that pyridoxine is a cofactor for decarboxylation reactions. Some other examples of decarboxylation reactions are those included in synthesizing neurotransmitters like GABA, serotonin, and dopamine. These will all be illustrated at the back of the ship. Let's start by meeting Gabe, one of the youngest members of the pirate crew, who's calmly waiting for his friend to join him on deck. Since the younger pirates have much more hip interests and hobbies than the older crew members, they tend to hang out by themselves. Gabe sounds like GABA, which should remind you of the inhibitory neurotransmitter GABA-aminobutyric acid, or GABA for short. Gabe's friend is late, but see how calmly Gabe is waiting. That illustrates that the main function of GABA in the central nervous system is to reduce excitability. Gabe, the calm young pirate, should remind you that pyridoxine is also a cofactor for the production of the inhibitory neurotransmitter GABA. Finally, Gabe's friend has shown up. He has brought his bagpipe with him, and together he and Gabe are chilling at the back of the boat, happily sharing tunes and enjoying themselves while the rest of the crew is working away. Sharing tunes sounds like serotonin, a neurotransmitter involved in regulating mood, sleep, and pain. These chill, happy friends should remind you that pyridoxine is a cofactor in the production of the neurotransmitter serotonin. In front of the kids sharing tunes, we see the captain of the ship standing proudly at the helm, displaying his muscles prominently, while smoke billows from a pipe in his mouth. He is smoking dope, our recurring symbol for dopamine, a neurotransmitter involved in making smooth movements. That muscular captain looks like he moves a lot, which should remind you that dopamine is involved in coordinating movement. When dopamine is deficient, pathologies like Parkinson's disease can present with disjointed cogwheel rigidity. Maybe that's why the captain is smoking dope heavily. Anyways, the pipe filled with dope should remind you that pyridoxine is a cofactor in the production of the neurotransmitter dopamine. If we look more closely at the captain's right hand, he is injecting a dagger-shaped EpiPen into his thigh. This EpiPen is our symbol for the neurotransmitter epinephrine, whose main actions are bronchodilation and vasoconstriction. This captain has had many severe allergic reactions in his life, bee stings, peanut butter, you name it. He just knows that there will be something on this island that will send him into anaphylactic shock. In anaphylaxis, the airway closes up, blood vessels dilate, sending the patient to shock. Epinephrine's bronchodilatory effects help by opening the airways and making it easier to breathe, while its vasoconstrictive effects help to maintain blood pressure. This idea of the captain injecting himself with EpiPen should remind you that pyridoxine is a cofactor for the production of the neurotransmitter epinephrine. Next to the captain is a compass with a big red arrow directing the ship northeast. This compass points toward the riches and treasure, and it looks like it's directing the pirate crew straight towards this island. The abbreviation NE for the northeast is our recurrent symbol for norepinephrine, a neurotransmitter as well as a hormone. As a neurotransmitter, norepinephrine works in the central nervous system to increase attention, wakefulness, and even anxiety. In the periphery, it increases heart rate, blood pressure, and glucose so that the muscles can receive increased blood flow and energy. Remember, these pirates are getting ready for a fight once they land and will need their bodies to be revved up. This compass pointing NE, or northeast, on a pirate ship full of pirates ready for a fight should help you remember that pyridoxine is a cofactor in the production of norepinephrine. Interestingly, norepinephrine and epinephrine are both derived from dopamine. Our captain smoking dope, standing next to a compass pointing northeast and injecting a dagger-shaped EpiPen should remind you that these two neurotransmitters are related to each other. Now that we have discussed neurotransmitters, we can turn our attention to other things pyridoxine helps synthesize. Along the shore of the beach, an islander is sawing off a flowering branch from a tree shaped like a glycogen molecule. Recall that glycogen is the body's stored form of glucose. When the body requires extra energy, it needs to be able to turn glycogen back into glucose. Just like this islander is sawing off the most distal branch of the tree, the enzyme glycogen phosphorylase breaks down glycogen by sawing off the terminal glucose 1-phosphate molecules one by one. Glucose 1-phosphate can then undergo reactions in the liver and kidney to become free glucose for the body to use. This should remind you that pyridoxine is a cofactor for the production of the enzyme glycogen phosphorylase, which catalyzes the rate-limiting step in glycogenolysis. As the islander is gardening, he notices the incoming pirate fleet and quickly raises the alarm. Responding to the alarm, here we see one of the first police officers to arrive on the scene with a nightstick in hand ready to defend the island. Nightstick sounds like niacin or vitamin B3. Both niacin and serotonin are synthesized from tryptophan. Niacin deficiency presents as pellagra, which presents with the 3 Ds, dermatitis, diarrhea, and dementia. Niacin can also increase levels of high-density lipoprotein in the blood. This islander with a nightstick should remind you that pyridoxine is a cofactor for the synthesis of niacin. Behind the islanders is their showcase of strength, a skeleton with a red scarf in an iron cage. Previous invaders have tried to take the island for their own, but the skeleton serves as a warning that the islanders cannot easily be defeated. The iron bars of this cage are here to remind you of iron. Iron is absorbed by the body in its ferrous state, then converted to its ferric form to be transported by transferrin to the erythroid precursor cells in the bone marrow to be used in the production of heme. Heme is the oxygen-carrying component of blood, and what gives blood its red color, depicting the red color of the scarf around the skeleton's belly. This bony skeleton behind iron bars with his red scarf should help you remember that pyridoxine is a cofactor for the production of the molecule heme. The crowds have gathered together along the shoreline now, and even little children come out into the fray. Behind the police officer, we can see a frightened child who thought he was grabbing a candy cane, but it turned out to be a hissing snake. Hissing snake sounds like histamine, an inflammatory mediator and neurotransmitter. In the central nervous system, histamine increases wakefulness and alertness. In the periphery, histamine stimulates gastric acid production and causes increased vascular permeability and vasodilation during mast cell degranulation. This child, who's become extremely alert after picking up a hissing snake, should remind you that pyridoxine is a cofactor in the production of histamine. Further down the shore, we can see a little girl crying in her mother's lap. This little girl is unluckier than the boy beside her, for she has been bitten on the thigh by that snake. Now she has a big red cyst on her thigh and is being comforted by her mother while sitting in her lap. The girl's cyst on her thigh and her glute on her mother's thigh sounds like cystathionine and glutathione, respectively. Cystathionine is a metabolite of homocysteine, the molecule that is elevated in folate and B12 deficiency. Glutathione is an antioxidant that protects against damage to tissues from reactive oxygen species. This crying child with a cyst on her thigh and glute on mom's thigh should help you remember that pyridoxine is a cofactor in the production of cystathionine and glutathione. Now let's turn our focus to things that can cause pyridoxine deficiency. The pyridoxine pirates are so busy preparing for battle with the islanders that they're too late to notice a huge iceberg in front of their ship until they run right into it. The figurehead on the bow of the ship is a carved wooden mermaid who is unlucky enough to bear the brunt of the collision with the iceberg. Ice shatters and showers down into the mermaid's head. Ice on the head sounds like isoniazid, an anti-tuberculosis drug. Isoniazid inhibits the enzyme pyridoxine phosphokinase, which converts pyridoxine into its active form. The metabolites of isoniazid directly inactivate pyridoxine as well. This should help you remember that isoniazid can induce functional pyridoxine deficiency. The impact of the ship hitting the iceberg also sent some chests of contraband flying overboard. Contraband sounds like contraceptives, and should remind you that hormonal contraceptives, especially oral forms, can cause pyridoxine deficiency. Now that we've learned about the causes of pyridoxine deficiency, let's look at all the ways pyridoxine deficiency can present. Contraband is not the only thing that was sent flying from the crash. On deck we can see a pirate shaking and falling over as if he's having a seizure. If you recall from our earlier discussion, pyridoxine is required for the synthesis of many neurotransmitters. Neurotransmitters are how neurons in the brain communicate with one another, and any disruption of this process could alter the way these neurons fire, especially when it comes to GABA. This seizing pirate should help you remember that pyridoxine deficiency can alter neuronal excitability and firing, causing seizures. In addition to falling pirates in contraband, this pirate over here looks extremely irritable at the run-ins with the iceberg. He can't believe they didn't see it coming. He's always planning to give the rest of the crew a stern talking to about paying attention while on the job. As we saw in earlier scenes, pyridoxine is involved in the synthesis of several neurotransmitters, so it should be no surprise that a pyridoxine deficiency will lead to mood changes such as irritability. This irritated pirate should help you remember that pyridoxine deficiency can cause irritability. Now that the ship is really at risk of sinking, the pirates are getting rid of any extra weight they can. And the first to go is the anchor, which has chains that happen to look a lot like sausage links. Sausage links are our symbol for the myelin sheath that covers nerve axons. In addition to being a cofactor for neurotransmitter synthesis, pyridoxine also contributes to myelin synthesis. A defect in myelin means defective nerve signaling. Therefore, this sausage link anchor getting detached from the ship's periphery should remind you that pyridoxine deficiency can result in peripheral neuropathy. As the final blow, we see that some of the chests thrown overboard contained explosives. They have blasted a hole in the side of a pirate ship. This blast in the side, or side blast, sounds like sideroblast, as of sideroblastic anemia, another feature of pyridoxine deficiency. In an earlier scene, we learned that the heme production pathway requires pyridoxine as a cofactor. Without enough pyridoxine to move the pathway forward and create a protoporphyrin ring, iron accumulates in the mitochondria of red blood cells, unable to ultimately be incorporated into the ring to produce heme. These iron-laden mitochondria, or sideroblasts, surround the nucleus of immature red blood cells and form a ring. Disruption of heme production means that the red blood cells in the body don't have a very efficient way to deliver oxygen to tissues. Therefore, pyridoxine deficiency can also present with sideroblastic anemia. And with this spectacular failure of the pyridoxine pirate's latest quest, we've covered everything you need to know about pyridoxine or vitamin B6 function and deficiency. See you when we next set sail.